But, you know, it's noted here, there've been 900 cases. I mean, the notion that the county has not been pursuing these zoning violations in the county are totally incorrect. It's a total
we were operating with a rule that one car constituted a violation. And of course, there was a considerable objection to that rule. The county was perhaps lax in enforcing those regulations for some period of time.
All these proposals, I need to know when this goes into effect. Is this retroactive to 1972, or is this when it's ratified by the county commissioners?
Dealt with, and like I said, they called me, they wanted me to go to breakfast with them the other morning, and I told them up front, I said, look, you need to know where I'm coming from before you invite me to breakfast, because you may not want me there. And they didn't have any problem with it at all. And I said, these are my ideas on what's going on.
So what do they want? If you would, as a majority of them, what do they want? They don't want any cleanup?
I didn't perceive that, but I didn't sit down and talk with them.
It's here that I question, that I would like clarification on because they seem redundant to me. One is in RAM, where you're asking for a conditional use permit for the collector car storage, and yet in the zoning resolution we talk about I got the notes. Things like auto repair station, service station, wrecker service, and with a conditional use permit, I can put in a reduction or salvage yard.
Yes, that's correct.
And then we want to put this heading in as collector car storage under that and hold these people responsible, but on the next page of this item, I bring to your attention under item 4, section G, excuse me, item 4, it says ranch and farm operations are going to be exempt. I find that a contradiction in terms, and it's been my experience that once this stuff's put in writing, it becomes a real hassle trying to get around it.
Planning and Zoning Commission. Thank you.
Yep, one last comment.
Please.
Property values, it's, your property's only worth what someone will pay you for. In the last 3 years, my property value has gone up 300%, and I am in non-compliance.
Yes. Go ahead. There you go. Don, I understand what you're saying about property values, and I'm not speaking in favor or against right now, but I want you to know my house isn't what it was worth several years ago either. It's just the economy, the way it's going right now.
May I respond to that?
Sure.
I understand the ups and downs of property values. I'm talking about current property values right now as of about 8 days ago. I'm talking about having 3 realtors come out and appraise my property along with a banker's appraiser. I spent over $250 on legal things having to do with what is my property really worth. I have a large steel building out there that's 30 by 100 foot. It's a shop. I paid $150,000 for that. I know right now, present values, it isn't worth that. But on the other hand, based upon present values of property, I would lose close to $100,000 on that property, that 80 acres. It's a hay operation, underground sprinkling systems, pumps, all kinds of easements, and that sort of thing. Hey, this is a prime piece of property, but it's being demeaned and degraded by my surroundings.
Would you go back very quickly and tell us the history of how this came about?
Well, basically, the history was that we were taking we passed a couple of years ago a zoning resolution which adopted nuisance standards.
When you start messing around with a specific group of people, and you have made this very, very specific. I would draw your attention to the very first thing, item number 2C, collector items, any moth accumulation of inanimate objects, excluding all motorized vehicles, when we get into the entire application process. First of all, from the handbook that comes out for county commissioners, let me read a paragraph entitled Home Rule. Home Rule is the process of giving local governments the widest possible latitude in handling their own local affairs. To this end, the Wyoming Constitution, Article 13, Section 1, as amended, empowers cities and towns to provide for their own government and local affairs by ordinance. This power does not apply to counties. The commissioners do not have the extensive lawmaking powers as the state legislature or the home rule of municipalities. They are generally limited to enacting those types of ordinances and regulations specifically permitted by state law. And we are going way over and above state law when we're discussing this entire text amendment.
To clean up the county from the junk and nuisance vehicles, that's why. The other thing is, you just stated earlier, you were questioning why you needed, about farm and ranch operations. You're exempt from the collector car storage if you're on a farm and ranch operation.
And then I want to know why is these vehicles that are not licensed, or why are they such a thing that we have to do something about them? What is the reason that this committee decides that we have to do something about our vehicles that we use on our own property? Can anyone answer that, why you're wanting me to do this? I'm sorry if I mispronounced your name. But she stated that the county can't do this by law. How do you get around that?
It's interpretation, sir. I'm not going to answer every one of your questions, but...
Okay.
So, if they respond within 14 days after getting the notice and start the CUP process, and then come before the county commission, what happens if it's denied?
The Development Department shall notify in writing any collector car storage conditional use permit holder of any failure to comply with the requirements set forth in paragraph F above. Permit holders shall have 14 days to bring the property into compliance with all conditions set forth in paragraph F above. If the property is not brought into compliance within the 14-day period, the Development Department shall notify the permit holder that collector car storage conditional use permit is revoked, effective immediately.
We have a new one, and it's this collector car accumulation. If someone is in violation of the regulations which were adopted by this board, we will inform the people that there is an existing violation, and if they're not going to respond to it, we will cite them.
Is really drawn from discussions in special meetings by and among the members of the Board of County Commissioners, the Planning and Zoning Commission, and a committee of 6 property owners tasked to address issues associated with collector car storage.
Denied by the county commissioners?
Yes, sir. Cars. Yeah. Is he then cited, or how's that work?
I think it would be given a reasonable amount of time to remove the car and bring it into compliance.
Is that 14 days again?
I wouldn't think so. I would think
Just
it'd be more reasonable for, I don't know that we've ever been unreasonable with anyone on it.
I'm not saying unreasonable, I'm just asking
I
about the
know.
process.
You know, 30, 60 days, 90 days, something like that.
There are some,
All of the meetings that we had, not one of the recommendations has been taken out. Secondly, you've made a lot about telling us that you've had a series of meetings between planning and zoning and commissioners and 6 citizen members. And you're not telling us that 3 of the citizen members were carefully chosen for their opposition to what was being proposed.
John Stevenson, and the old property 6694 Poison Spider. I was on the board, or the committee, and all of wanted to find 6. And I can tell you right now that the public has been misled. A piece of paper has not taken away the fact that it is an eyesore. However, to single out a person for the type of collection of collector vehicles and say that it is absolutely none of them, to single out Dana Jones because he likes trucks, I find that appalling. That is prejudice. I mean, who is to determine what is a collector item and what isn't?
To the, those in favor, please.
Well, close but no cigar. If it goes in percentages, you have to think, well,
Name?
I'm Stan Goodwin. I live at 6465 Riverside Terrace in Casper, London. I apologize. Anyway, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, from where this started from a year ago to where we're at now, has really had a lot of commentary, discussion, and points made. In fact, the first meeting that we had of the car collectors, it was amazing that most everybody would go along with state law as defined or somewhat modified. Well, worked hard, did research, looked at surrounding states, counties, different sources of things that would be credible, that would give us discussion and different definitions to build a foundation on. And that was the reason I took on maybe the volunteer responsibility of contributing to the solution. Seemed like we've rather skirted state law. A lot of things that we talked about have been watered down and diluted. And it seemed like to some of us laymen, it's a lot of
Even though you don't think it affects you, it will. I get the zone enforcer comes up and down my alley approximately at least once a week. And I try to talk to him to see what he's either up to or what he's doing or whatever. And as soon as I go to walk up to him, he rolls up his window and leaves. And he'll go right around the block and come back. So they're up to something. And I already talked to Gene Novotny, and Novotny's already been given a whole bunch of citations on some of his property, which is one of them behind me. But anyways, the city's getting ready to do exactly what the county's doing. If the county can get this through, you won't even be able to park your car outside your garage with license plates on it before they get through with it.
To bring it up to code unless he applies for a permit. You're making a criminal or a lawbreaker out of somebody that has no intention of breaking.
On the committee, right?
Yes, I was.
Do you feel the concerns you had, were they listened to, and who else?
No, I don't believe they have been.
Okay, now there was 3 in favor and 3 against.
What is the intent? We were talking about vehicles that were less than 1 ton or 1.5 ton. The weight should have never been in there. So I think we're all on the same page, and thank you for clarifying that. But just emotional and artistic, are both of those words coming out?
Yes.
Yeah, okay. And just a little background, one of the reasons that we left out the 25-year mark, because we see lots of people out there who have a car that they want to fix up, and it may not be 25 years old. And I don't want to put to me, there's not a lot of difference. If you're going to have this one I'm going to fix and it's 24 years old, why is it different than this one that's 26 years old that's right across the street? I don't see the difference in that. As long as it's 4, it's 4. And we see that on.
Because one is exempt under state
To
law.
walk out there and have your enforcement officer saying, well, that was 25, it's okay, I was 26, oh, we got one here who's only 18 years old, it's gotta go. It just seems, from an objective standpoint, 4 is 4 regardless of how old they are. So that's where that came from.
By the time the car gets fixed up, it'll be 45.
Look, our nuisance ordinances define screening as method by which one property, the view of one property from another property is substantially shielded. Screening techniques include fences, walls, hedges, berms, setbacks.
Part of my frustration is, I guess, you know, we're wanting to make the ability to use rationale in how we move forward, and still we're trying to legislate discretion. I'm not sure we're able to do that. So, you know, I think some of us, as we picture it, we don't want 4 large dump trucks on, you know, with a house and like an eighth of an acre. That wouldn't be a good fit. But and so I think as we try to come up with some regulations that you know, blanket Shoulnd County, you know, I think we still need the ability, however, to say, well, you know, if it be a ton and a half, if it be a fire truck or a dump truck, it's really gonna, you know, we're gonna have to look again at is it reasonable for that particular lot.
And hard to define the resolutions, but, you know, the thing that concerns me is some of the grandfathering or the checkerboard that we have between zoning districts, where you could have an industrial site across the road from somebody that's agricultural, and you know, it's really something to deal with. I think the antique law was good, and we tried to be more inclusive, and I know that the zoning and planning and the committee agreed on collector vehicles. Of course, you have collector items and road graders and stuff like that. Well, that'd be a collector item, not necessarily a licensable vehicle. Well, we talked about ordinary public view, and we bored some of you with the public view thing, but it's an important thing. What perspective do you have? And there's been some consideration on that, and I think that would be somewhat beneficial as far as screening and enforcing this ordinance. And that's what we're trying to do, is get a separation between somebody that is a hoarder and has all sorts of materials on the property, and you can sort out maybe collector vehicles, or somebody that sincerely does have collector vehicles. There has to be a separation there.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I have one thing. Gene, I don't know if I mentioned it to you, the deal here. In the last year, have you, about how many complaints have you folks had about cars? I mean, as far as, you know, property owners calling and complaining about.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Wingerter, I actually don't have a count. I haven't really kept count. We filed those complaints. Some of them are, they come in and will fill out a form, in which sometimes they'll give us their name or phone number. Frequently, it's simply a telephone call.
TA 11-0001, a request by the Natrona County Development Department staff to amend the text of the zoning resolution of Natrona County along with Chapter 7, Section 7, relating to nuisance and storage requirements. Chapter 11, Section 2, relating to conditional use permits. The hearing will be conducted in court.
I just prepared a synopsis of a worksheet that I started a couple years ago, and this has got every enforcement file that has been placed since 1977. That was when the first
Is the collector car situation. Under that situation, the only way to get into compliance is to obtain the conditional use permit.
Meeting held last Tuesday, you're probably aware of, after hearing, according to the 10 o'clock news, that there were 12 people speaking against the proposed text amendment, and one of those taking the time of others, who yielded the speaker their time, and then 2, speaking in favor of the adoption of the text amendment.
You own a business and you're on a council or something like that, and you own a business and an issue comes up pertaining the same thing as your business, you got to vote abstain.
You're supposed to.
So, Ron Henry has no goddamn opinion.
Yeah, that's
He
true.
should have no opinion. If we can't go after ranchers and stuff, he should vote abstain.
Board members vote on it. I don't know what your policy is. Do you have a policy on that? I would assume.
We do have a policy on benefit, true benefit, financial benefit. I happen to be kind of a strict constructionist when it comes to conflict of interest. It becomes less of a conflict if you at least acknowledge it.
Right.
And in most cases, if it's enough of a conflict to acknowledge, it's probably enough of a conflict not to vote. I think it bodes well for anybody sitting on public bodies.
What I see here is this is allowing you to create a great deal of bureaucracy funded by the very taxpayers and landowners.
That's fairly well said.
Mr. Chair, one of the situation that I'm concerned about, and you mentioned neighbors, was some of these neighbors have moved in since they had, the other neighbor had those cars there. And then these neighbors might come and say, well, my land is developed.
Could probably be licensed, you'd be okay, but the parts one, you'd have a problem.
I assume it runs or you wouldn't be fixing it.
Well, it runs since I put an engine in it. I mean, you don't understand, I don't think you guys understand what it means to have, to work on collector vehicles.
That's right.
Mr. Chairman, I have a concern that I'd like to bring up. Why should a person have to put plates on it? How long does it take to remodel this bus into a motorhome?
Well, I've been working on it for 2 years now.
Okay, so I don't know why a person should have to buy plates to have it sit so he can work on it for 2 years. What? So that would be...
I would petition you, Dana. You gotta meet us halfway. You have to apply for...
No.
Well then, you know, I mean, if you won't apply for an auto reduction yard, then, you know, I don't know, you're gonna have to meet me halfway.
We talked about the flooding. Did you guys get all those emails?
Yes, I couldn't get them, but drove me nuts.
I destroyed them all. Well, I've got to destroy them all too, but God, I got on there the other day. I looked Friday, then I got on Sunday night or
that kind of thing.
So we sort of clarified what the screen will be, so it's not subjective. Everybody, they have an idea. It's got to be
Correct. We've said, fence, walls. We've added some screening terminology into it. Yes.
Now I got a question. Are we making any allowances for trucks? Because we call pickups. It's more than a half pickup. Anything larger than that? No. 3/4 ton, I think, was we wanted to.
Correct. They're going back to, is it considered the collector items? Because we're just pulling vehicles out of collector items. So does it fit into collector items, which are some of the allowed things, or is it just a junkyard, which is not allowed?
And the next question I have is, what about this thing that's in the state statutes? It says anything that's considered 25 years or older, we're not even addressing that. Well, no, but I can ask it, and that's what I'm asking. Are you?
We're not talking about just antique cars. We're not addressing just antique cars people have in their yard. No.
He writes for the American Truck Historical Society. We had him up here in one of the meetings. He did about a 15-minute presentation on old trucks and why they're appreciated. They laughed at him, thought he was an old man, didn't look at him. Couldn't believe it. Jeez. Bart Perry got him in, and he did a good job, and they thought he was really good.
That's great.
But the antique truck thing is alive and well too, just like the car thing.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of publication, a
Well,
lot of
that's,
shows and interest.
I don't understand why these people can't figure it out. You have your thing. We don't bother you. Why the hell do you have to bother us?
Exactly, yeah.
We're not forcing, hey, you should like this.
It defies common sense. Yeah. I've never had people gang up on me like that. Right.
That's what I heard. I don't understand the purpose, I mean, because that's why you have that out there.
Exactly. That's why we moved to the country. That's why you want to be in the country. So you can have the property.
Yeah. Now they're saying you can't have your property.
Well, you have title to it.
Yeah. So.
Well, some people put their money in a bank. Some people play the stock market. Dana put his money into cars.
Exactly. No, it's, to me, it's.
And if you look at the Federalist Papers, if you look at the writings of the founders, they wrote the Bill of Rights, and even though private property is not mentioned until the Fifth Amendment, they believe that the foundation for every single right in this country, our freedom of speech, our freedom to vote, our freedom to petition, it's all based on the right of ownership of private property.